Letters from nowhere. The stranger at the mailbox. Hunters Point, Oregon, was so small that when someone sneezed, neighbors across the street would say, "Bless you." Nothing unusual ever happened there. At least, not until the day a stranger appeared near the old Mason family mailbox. Alyssa Mason, a 28-year-old schoolteacher, stepped out onto her porch like she did every morning. In a terrycloth robe, clutching a strong cup of coffee, her mind already focused on the dull parent-teacher meetings ahead. But something immediately caught her eye, a man in a long black coat, standing by their weathered mailbox. He was holding a strange envelope, thick, yellowed, and tied with a crimson string. "Hey, did you drop something?" she called out, squinting into the morning sun. The man turned. His face was mostly hidden behind large glasses and a wide-brimmed hat. He said nothing, just calmly slipped the envelope into the mailbox. Then, without a word, he disappeared into the tall pine trees, vanishing as if he'd melted into the morning air. Alyssa walked down the steps and cautiously pulled the envelope out. Her name was on it, but not just Alyssa Mason, it read. Alyssa Mason, the one who forgot. The handwriting was old-fashioned, ink slightly smudged. In the corner, a postmark stood out, June 14th, 1953. Alyssa's heartbeat quickened. This wasn't a prank. The paper truly smelled of dust and time. She glanced at the calendar in her kitchen. Today was June 14th, but the year was 2025. She opened the envelope and read, "If you're reading this, it means I failed. Or you've woken up. They are watching. Don't trust the mirrors. Start in the basement. You'll find a first key beneath Grandpa's clock. Don't look back. Ever. Signed simply, eh?" In that moment, Alyssa's life split into a before and an after. She didn't know who sent the letter, but a growing sense of being watched crept up her spine. The hallway mirror suddenly looked unfamiliar. And her grandfather's clock. She had forgotten it even existed. Clutching the letter, she walked toward it and began to search. The first key. Alyssa crouched before the antique clock, standing in the corner of the dining room. It was a towering grandfather clock she'd inherited from her grandfather, a man she barely remembered. The mechanism hadn't worked in years, but for some reason, she never threw it out. Like some inner voice had always whispered, "You'll need it someday." She ran her fingers along the dusty wooden casing. The letter made her pulse throb in her neck. She turned the brass handle, and the lower panel creaked open. Inside was a small box wrapped in cloth. With trembling hands, Alyssa took it out. Unwrapping it revealed an old bronze key, heavy, with an ice symbol engraved into the head. Beneath it, a note. "The second step is behind the door you haven't opened since childhood. They locked you in. Now you must walk out." "Who are they?" she whispered. Her gaze shifted to the staircase leading to the attic. A memory stirred. She was 6 years old, wandering up there, and the door had slammed shut behind her. She screamed until her mother opened it. Since that day, she had never gone back. Not even close. The key seemed too large for a normal door, and yet something told her it belonged up there. Summoning her courage, she climbed the stairs. Each step creaked under her weight, as if warning her to turn back. The attic door's handle was cold and covered in cobwebs. Alyssa inserted the key. It fit perfectly. With a slow turn, the lock clicked, and the door swung open. Behind it was darkness. Not just absence of light, this darkness breathed, thick and echoing like something alive. She switched on her phone's flashlight. The beam landed on an antique doll sitting upright on a chair. Its eyes looked exactly like hers. On the floor lay a circle drawn in chalk, surrounded by symbols she didn't understand. In the center, a dusty old record player. As soon as she stepped into the room, it turned on by itself. A distorted, gravelly voice spoke. "Alyssa, you'll remember. It all began here. Open the drawer beneath the doll, and don't trust the one who speaks in your voice." Alyssa felt the air grow thick around her. She knew something, or someone, stood behind her, but she didn't look. She walked toward the doll and slowly pulled open the drawer beneath it. Inside lay a photograph. It showed her as a little girl, standing next to a woman who looked exactly like her current self. Only Alyssa had never seen this woman before in her life. On the back of the photo, someone had write, "Titi, my dearest daughter, goodbye." If you're reading this, I couldn't stop them. Run before it's too late. The photo slipped from her hands. From behind the door came a voice, her own. Alyssa, I'm back. Letters from nowhere, the mirror room. Alyssa didn't move. The voice from behind the attic door, her voice, echoed again. Alyssa, come downstairs. You left something behind. She couldn't explain it, but her instinct screamed, that's not me. Don't open that door. She backed away from the doll, her phone's flashlight flickering as the air grew colder. Her breath misted, though it was June. That voice, identical to hers in tone and rhythm, somehow carried no warmth, no humanity. Alyssa glanced again at the photograph on the floor. The woman who looked like her, same cheekbones, same tired eyes, held the child version of Alyssa like a mother would. But Alyssa had no memory of her. Her mother had died in a car accident when she was just a toddler. At least that's what her father had always told her. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from downstairs. A door slamming. Her phone buzzed violently in her hand. Unknown number. One new. MES. Sage. Don't trust her. She came through the mirror. Roar. Before she could reply, the message deleted itself. She turned and left the attic, moving carefully down the stairs, the key still clutched tightly in her hand. Every shadow seemed thicker now. The photos in the hallway, family pictures she'd seen 100 times, now fell off. The smiles too wide, the eyes too blank. In the living room, the large mirror above the fireplace drew her attention. It had belonged to her grandmother. Alyssa barely remembered her, only that she used to mutter strange things in her sleep. Things about doors that reflect and souls that wander too far. Her dad used to laugh it off, saying she read too many Gothic novels. But now, the mirror shimmered. It wasn't just reflecting the room, it was moving, like the surface of water rippling inward. And then she saw herself in the mirror, but not quite. The reflection was her, yes, but the expression wasn't hers. The eyes in the mirror were colder, calculating, and they didn't copy her movements. When Alyssa tilted her head, the reflection smiled. She stepped closer. The smile widened. Then the reflection raised its hand and pointed, not at Alyssa, but toward the hallway behind her. Alyssa turned sharply. Nothing. When she looked back, the mirror was just a mirror again, still unmoving. Her reflection returned to normal. But something had changed. She noticed, at the edge of the frame, a small engraving she'd never seen before. A phrase carved into the wood, almost hidden by years of dust. Tea and polish. One must enter to remember. One must forget. Tolosu. Revive. Just beneath it, another keyhole. A perfect match for the bronze key. Her heart racing, Alyssa hesitated only a moment before sliding the key in. It turned with a soft click. Suddenly, the mirror's surface began to pulse, like a heartbeat. And then it opened. Not shattered. Not cracked. Opened. Beyond it, a hallway lit by red lanterns, the air full of whispers. And in the distance, a piano playing a lullaby she hadn't heard since she was 3 years old. Alyssa stepped through, and the mirror closed behind her. Letters from ill, her breath shallow. The air inside the mirror world was thicker, almost syrupy, as if time itself had slowed. The floor beneath her feet looked like polished obsidian, dark, glass-like, and too perfect to be real. The corridor ahead stretched into a seemingly endless tunnel, bathed in dim, reddish light from paper lanterns hanging in eerie silence. Each one had something written in black ink, symbols she didn't recognize, but they stirred a distant ache in her chest, like she should remember. The lullaby continued, soft and slow, played on an old piano. The melody tugged at her soul. She took a cautious step forward. The sound of her foot hitting the obsidian floor echoed unnaturally loud, like it wasn't just bouncing off walls but coming back from some other place entirely. She walked. The first door she passed was marked W. It, H.A. Bras. S.P.L.A. K. Room O. F. Echoes. From within, she heard sobbing, her voice crying like a child. Alyssa paused, her hand hovering over the doorknob. But something inside her whispered, not yet. She kept walking. The second door had no handle. It was completely black, and her reflection shimmered faintly across it. Except her reflection wasn't mimicking her movements. It was standing still, watching her, blinking slowly. She hurried past. Further down the hallway, she came to a third door, slightly ajar. Faint candlelight spilled out, casting flickering shadows on the ground. She pushed it open carefully. Inside was a room that looked almost normal, like a child's bedroom from the 80s. A small twin bed with a pink blanket, a shelf of stuffed animals, crayons on the floor, and in the corner a piano. The music was coming from it, but no one sat at the bench. Alyssa stepped closer. That's when she saw the drawing on the wall, a crude child's crayon sketch taped above the bed. It showed a house with smoke coming out of the chimney, a big smiling sun, and three stick figures, a child, a woman, and someone tall and shadowy, with no face, standing behind them. Underneath it, in messy handwriting, me, Mommy, and the tall one. Her throat tightened. The closet door in the corner creaked open. Alyssa spun toward it. Nothing came out, but inside she saw something glowing. She approached carefully and found a box, glowing faint blue. Inside was another. ENV. Elope. She opened it. You're closer now. The red hall sees your memories. That's how she found you. The one who looks like you. She's not copying. She's remember. ING. You used to be one. Her knees nearly buckled. What did that mean? Used to be one? Suddenly, behind her, the piano slammed shut. The lights flickered. The hallway outside darkened. And then a voice came from the closet. A low, broken whisper. You left me here, Alyssa. You forgot. But I didn't. She stumbled backward and ran from the room, the envelope still clutched in her hands. As she entered the hallway again, the red lanterns began flickering violently, casting shadows that didn't match her body. Then, ahead, she saw someone standing at the end of the hall. Her exact double, only older. Hair darker, eyes colder, wearing the same clothes Alyssa had on earlier that morning. The figure smiled. You found the key. Now let's see if you're ready for the door. She raised her hand, and the hallway twisted around Alyssa like a vortex of glass and blood-red light. And then darkness. The memory that wasn't hers. Alyssa opened her eyes. She was lying on a wooden floor, the boards warm beneath her cheek. For a moment, she couldn't move, like waking from a nightmare too deep. Her body hadn't caught up to her mind. The flickering sound of fire crackled nearby, and when she finally pushed herself up, she realized she wasn't in her own world anymore. This place, it was a living room, but not hers. Cozy, old-fashioned, too still. A grandfather clock ticked slowly in the corner, its sound thick and heavy like a heartbeat. On the coffee table, letters from nowhere, the final door. The taste was bitter. As soon as Alyssa swallowed the dark liquid, the room began to dissolve around her. Not with a crash, not with flames or noise. It simply faded like smoke on a still day. The woman, her mirror self, didn't vanish. She remained, watching with soft eyes that now seemed distant, as though she had fulfilled her role and was ready to disappear. Alyssa blinked. She stood in front of a door. It was ancient, made of wood so dark it seemed black. A single silver symbol was carved into it, the same eye that had been engraved on the key she had found. The hallway was silent. No wind, no whispering, no music. She placed her hand on the door. It opened on its own. What lay beyond wasn't what she expected. It wasn't some haunted chamber or this place, it was a living room, but not hers. Cozy, old-fashioned, too still. A grandfather clock ticked slowly in the corner, its sound thick and heavy like a heartbeat. On the coffee table sat a single photograph in a brass frame. A little girl holding a red balloon, smiling up at a woman whose face was turned away from the camera. Alyssa picked up the photo, her hands trembling. The girl in the picture was unmistakably her, but she had no memory of it. No balloon, no living room, no woman in a yellow sweater standing behind her. And then she heard a voice, soft, gentle, humming the same lullaby she'd heard in the mirror hallway. The melody came from the kitchen. Alyssa stepped forward. Each movement felt like wading through a thick dream. The hallway walls had drawings, clearly from a child's hand. Butterflies, suns, a house with one broken window. All signed with a childish am. She paused at the kitchen doorway. There, with her back turned, stood the woman from the photo. She was making tea, humming. The kettle on the stove steamed, though no flame was visible. Her movements were smooth, familiar. "Hello," Alyssa whispered. The woman turned slowly. Her face was Alyssa's, but softer, older. Her eyes carried the weight of decades, sadness, tenderness, and something else, regret. "You came back," she said. Alyssa shook her head. "Who are you? What is this place?" The woman walked toward her, gently placing the kettle on the table. Her footsteps made no sound. "This is where it happened," the woman said. "The real forgetting. You chose not to remember because it was the only way to survive." "What did I forget?" The woman, her twin, her echo, her other, raised her hand. She reached forward and gently touched Alyssa's temple. And then, it came flooding back. The fire, the screaming, a shadow with no face dragging her mother into the mirror. A girl, little Alyssa, clutching a red balloon, trying to pull her mother back. The reflection smiling. And then, a choice. You can stay and be erased, or leave and forget. She had chosen to forget. She had lived a normal life because the part of her that remembered was locked behind a wall of memory, guarded by a mirrored self. This woman standing before her now was not an enemy, but the keeper of that forgotten self. "I was you," the woman whispered. "The part that remembered. I stayed to protect what was left of us." Alyssa's knees gave out, and she dropped into the nearest chair. "Why now? Why are you showing me this?" "Because she's waking up too," the woman said. "The one who took our mother. She's using your memories to come back. And if you don't remember who you really are." She leaned in close, her voice almost breaking. "She'll replace you. In your world. In your skin. With your face." Alyssa felt cold tears running down her cheeks. "So what do I do?" The woman slowly extended a small glass vial. Inside, black liquid, swirling like ink and water. "This will open the final door. But once you drink it, there's no forgetting again." Alyssa stared at it, and from somewhere behind the walls, the lullaby twisted, shifting into something darker, slower, almost like a heartbeat slowing down. She reached out, took the vial, and drank. Letters from nowhere, the final door. The taste was bitter. As soon as Alyssa swallowed the dark liquid, the room began to dissolve around her. Not with a crash, not with flames or noise. It simply faded like smoke on a still day. The woman, her mirror self, didn't vanish. She remained, watching with soft eyes that now seemed distant, as though she had fulfilled her role and was ready to disappear. Alyssa blinked. She stood in front of a door. It was ancient, made of wood so dark it seemed black. A single silver symbol was carved into it, the same eye that had been engraved on the key she had found. The hallway was silent. No wind, no whispering, no music. She placed her hand on the door. It opened on its own. What lay beyond wasn't what she expected. It wasn't some haunted chamber or burning pit. It was a field, endless, golden, and calm. A blue sky stretched over her head. Birds flew quietly in the distance. There was peace here, but it felt wrong, like something was pretending. In the center of the field stood a tall woman in a white dress. Her back was turned. Alyssa walked toward her, slow and steady. With each step, the grass felt colder. At first she thought it was dew. Then she realized it was frost. The woman turned. She had no face, no eyes, no mouth. Only smooth skin, like porcelain. But Alyssa felt it watching her. She didn't need to speak. She knew. This was the one who had taken her mother. The one who had waited behind the mirrors. The creature began to change. Its face shifted, and a moment later, it looked exactly like Alyssa. Not a copy, not a reflection, but something deeper, older. It spoke in her voice. "I'm tired of watching through glass." Alyssa didn't run. She was done running. "You took her," she said. The thing smiled. "She came willingly. You were the one who left. You closed your eyes. You forgot." Alyssa stepped forward. "I remember now." The moment she said it, the sky darkened. The golden field turned to ash. Around her, old memories rose from the ground. Laughter, pain, her mother's voice calling her name, her own screams trapped inside the mirror. She faced the creature. "You can't be me," she said, "because I'm not afraid anymore." The thing lunged, but Alyssa didn't move. She stood firm, arms at her sides, and whispered the lullaby. The one from her childhood, the one her mother sang. The words didn't matter. The song held power. The light returned. The creature cracked, its face shattering like glass, piece by piece, until it fell to the ground in silence. When Alyssa opened her eyes again, she was standing in her living room. The mirror above the fireplace was broken. The house was quiet, but now it felt like her own. She walked to the front porch and sat on the steps. In her hand, she still held the photograph of her younger self with the woman in yellow. This time, she knew who it was. She smiled. Then from the mailbox came a soft thud. A new letter had arrived. The letter with no sender. Alyssa stared at the mailbox. She didn't move for a while. The air around her felt strangely still again, but not dangerous. More like the moment before rain. Quiet. Charged. The photograph still rested in her lap, but now her attention shifted fully to the small metal box at the end of her porch. She stood up and slowly walked toward it. Inside was another envelope, plain, cream-colored, unmarked. No stamp. No return address. No handwriting on the outside. She brought it inside and opened it carefully. There was no letter inside, only a photograph. It was old. A group of people stood in a black and white courtyard, dressed in early 1900s clothes. Men in coats, women in wide dresses. But at the center, seated on a wooden bench, was a girl. She looked about 7 or 8 years old. It was her, not someone who resembled her. It was Alyssa, down to the faint scar under her chin she got falling from a swing at age 6. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, "You were here once." Before names. Before time. She turned the photo over again. Behind the crowd, just barely visible, stood a tall shape. Unmoving. Faceless. Her hands trembled. She looked closer. The building in the background. It had a name carved above the door. Willowgate Institute for Lost Children. Alyssa whispered the name aloud, and something unlocked inside her. A headache, sudden and sharp, pulsed through her skull. Flashes came with it. Brick walls. Long halls. Whispered lullabies in a language she didn't recognize. A girl, curled up on a cot, speaking to someone who wasn't there. And then, the sharpest image of all, a mirror taller than a man, with children on one side and shadows on the other. She dropped the photo. It slid across the table and stopped near the clock. The same clock that had given her the first key. A low ticking sound started again, though the hands hadn't moved in years. Alyssa stared at it. Her chest tightened. Was Willowgate real? Had she lived there? She opened her laptop and typed the name into a search engine. No results. No photos. Not even in historical archives. Nothing. Then, just as she was about to close the browser, her email refreshed. New message. Subject. "We remember you." From unknown at nowhere to mail. The body of the message was blank, but attached was a sound file. Alyssa hesitated. Then she hit play. It was a recording of her own voice, crying, and then whispering a single sentence. "I never left." She slammed the laptop shut. She felt it again, the presence. Not in the mirror this time, but deeper, closer, inside the house itself. And then the hallway light flickered. Footsteps creaked in the attic above. Someone was walking, slowly back and forth. Back and forth. Alyssa picked up the photo again, turned it over, and noticed something else, barely visible under the faded ink. Another line. "Find the boy. He knows what they took from you." The boy with no name. The attic door was open. Alyssa climbed the stairs, one hand on the railing, the other clutching the photograph. The footsteps had stopped, but the air was heavy, as if someone had just passed through moments before. At the top, the attic was darker than before. Dust hung in the air. A single bulb flickered above, casting long, shifting shadows across old furniture and boxes she hadn't touched in years. Then she saw him. A boy, maybe 9, maybe 10, sitting cross-legged on the floor near the old rocking chair. Pale skin, thin frame, a gray sweater that looked far too big for him. His eyes were wide. Not afraid, but ancient. He looked at her and said, "You came late." Alyssa stepped closer. Who are you? The boy didn't answer. He motioned to a small wooden box beside him. She picked it up. Inside were pieces of broken mirror, each reflecting a different version of her face. Some smiling, some crying, one screaming. The boy spoke again. They kept pieces of you here, in case you ever returned. What is this place? He looked around. It's not a place. It's what's left after places forget. She knelt beside him. What did they take from me? Not what, he said. Who? He reached into his pocket and handed her a crumpled paper. It was a drawing, a little girl holding hands with a woman in a yellow dress and a boy in a gray sweater. The girl had Alyssa's name written under it. The woman had no label. The boy's was smudged. You were there, she said. The boy nodded. Before you forgot. We all were. A sudden creak echoed below. The boy's head turned sharply. She's coming. Alyssa stood. Who? The one who remembers too much. She's not like the others. She wants to become real. He pointed to the back wall. There was no door, but the wallpaper there was peeling. Beneath it, something pulsed faintly, like light trying to break through. She hid the name there, the boy whispered. Yours. Hers. The one that ends this. Alyssa reached for the wall, and something on the other side knocked back. The name behind the wall. Alyssa froze. The knock came again, soft, deliberate, like fingertips tapping from the other side of something thin but unbreakable. She pressed her hand against the wallpaper. It was damp, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The boy stood behind her. She doesn't want you to find it, he said quietly. But if you do, she can't hide anymore. Alyssa peeled back the wallpaper. Underneath was a layer of scorched wood, dark and cracked like it had been burned years ago. Across the surface, etched by a child's hand, were dozens of names, most of them scratched out. Except one. It was hers, but not Alyssa. It said, Alyra. She stared at the name. It felt real, familiar in her bones. And as she whispered it aloud, the attic pulsed. Not the room, the very world. Alyra. The boy took a step back. You're waking up. She turned to him. Is that my real name? He nodded. The one they took from you when they pulled you out. Pull me from where? From her, he said. From the place she keeps all the copies. Suddenly, the mirror shards in the wooden box began to hum. The edges glowed with faint blue light. One of them lifted slightly, and a face appeared in it. Alyssa's face, but hollow-eyed, her mouth stitched shut. She found a name too, the boy whispered. But she used it differently. She let it consume her. Cracks began to form along the attic floorboards. Cold air blew upward from below. Shadows crawled from the corners. From the broken mirror shards, a voice emerged, layered, distorted, echoing. Give it back, Alyra. You don't deserve what you forgot. Alyssa stood up. The attic was collapsing around her, but she felt steady. What happens if I say my name again? She asked. You'll remember everything, the boy replied. But so will she. Another voice joined in from behind the wall. Alyra. It was her mother's voice. Soft. Frightened. Then, you still have time. Alyssa took a deep breath. The wallpaper peeled away fully. Behind it, an old door came into view. No handle, no lock. Only that name. She pressed her hand against the wood and spoke clearly. My name is Alyra. The door split open. Behind it, nothingness. And yet, something waited inside it. The boy vanished, and the stairwell behind her turned black. There was only one way forward. She stepped into the dark, into the hollow. The moment Alyra stepped through the door, sound disappeared. No wind, no breathing, not even her heartbeat. She floated, or maybe she walked, across a space that had no floor, no sky. Only darkness that pulsed like a living thing. Somewhere deep in that emptiness, a faint voice called out. Not a scream, not a whisper, a song, the lullaby again. She followed it. As she moved forward, images began to flicker around her, like flashes on old film. Her mother's face, a staircase, a reflection twisting into a grin. Her own eyes filled with terror. Each memory struck like lightning, burning its shape behind her eyes. And then she saw it, a figure in the distance. Tall, still, waiting. The voice was clearer now. You've come far, Alyra. The figure stepped forward. It was her again, The version with stitched lips, but now the threads had unraveled. Blood trickled down her chin, and her eyes were filled with something worse than rage. Pity. You were never meant to leave. We were never meant to split. Alyra stood still. You're just a part of me, she said. The fear. The forgotten. The reflection smiled. And you? You're the one who ran. From the darkness, broken mirrors began to rise around them, circling slowly. Each one held a different version of Alyra's life, timelines that could have been. Some joyful, others full of pain. In one, her mother survived. In another, Alyra had never been born. The stitched-lipped version raised a hand, and the mirrors began to shatter, one by one. This is the cost of remembering. Every life you didn't live will die. Every version of you that dreamed, gone. I didn't ask for this, Alyra said. You did, when you opened the letter. Silence. Then her voice softened. But you can end it. Give me the name. Let me wear it. Let me live in your place. You won't hurt. You won't remember. It'll be easier. Alyra looked at her, the one who suffered in her place, who remembered everything she had forgotten. No, she said. I won't run again. She reached into her coat and pulled out the last shard of mirror the boy had given her in the attic. Its surface shimmered, showing a child's drawing, her mother, the boy, and herself holding hands. This is who I am. She raised the shard and thrust it forward. The reflection screamed, not in pain, in release. Light burst through the void. The mirrors dissolved. The stitched twin faded into ash, her eyes softening one last time. Then everything disappeared. Alyra collapsed on a cold hardwood. She was home. The mirror above the fireplace was whole again. But this time, it didn't show a reflection. It showed a door, and it was open. On the other side, someone waited. Her mother, smiling. And behind her, the boy in the gray sweater. Alyra stood up and stepped through. The reunion. Warmth. That was the first thing Alyra felt as she stepped through the mirror door. The chill of the hollow world was gone. Instead, sunlight poured in through tall windows lined with pale blue curtains. The air smelled like rosemary and old wood. A clock ticked somewhere, not like the one in her house, but gentler. Her mother stood just ahead, near a window, exactly as she remembered her. Wavy brown hair, tired eyes that somehow still looked kind. She turned, and their eyes met. Neither of them spoke. Alyra ran to her, and they embraced. For a moment, time seemed to hold still. You remembered, her mother said quietly. I didn't want to, Alyra replied. But I had to. Her mother pulled back slightly and touched her cheek. I'm sorry I couldn't come back. I tried. Where is this? Alyra looked around. The room was familiar and unfamiliar all at once. Is this real? It's what's left, her mother answered. Of all the places they couldn't erase. Behind them, the boy stood silently in the doorway. Alyra turned. You never told me your name. He hesitated. It was taken, but you used to call me Eli. She nodded slowly. Eli. I remember. The mirror behind them rippled slightly. Her mother's expression changed. She knows where you are now, she said, and she'll come through again. You need to finish what you started. Alyra looked at the hallway beyond the room. The walls were marked with drawings, just like in the attic, only now she recognized each one. They were memories she had buried, and one of the doors at the end was glowing softly. She locked it, Eli said, the part that matters most. Alyra stepped toward the hall and opened the next door, the forgotten room. Inside it was quiet, not silent, the kind of quiet that carries meaning. The air hummed faintly, as if something old still breathed here. It was a bedroom, her bedroom, but it wasn't how it looked now. It was the room as it had been when she was 6. Books scattered on the floor, a nightlight in the shape of a cat, stickers peeling from the closet door. The wallpaper was pale purple with stars, and sitting on the bed was the first drawing she'd ever made. Her and her mother, and the tall, faceless shadow behind them. She sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid. I know what you are, she whispered. I know you fed on forgetting, but I remember now. The walls around her responded. A low hum turned into voices, faint echoes of her childhood. Moments of joy, fear, silence. A crack appeared on the floor beneath the bed. Alyra knelt and reached in. She pulled out a box. Inside were dozens of photos. Some were real, Some were warped. People she didn't know, but who felt familiar. Other children. Other versions of her. And one picture at the bottom. Her mother, holding a baby wrapped in red cloth. The back said only one word. Lyra. No Alyssa. No Alyra. Just Lyra. She smiled softly. They'd taken her name, split it apart, scattered it in different reflections. But now she had it again. Whole. Her real name. She carried the box into the hallway. Her mother and Eli waited. Alyra held up the photo. She named me Lyra, didn't she? Her mother nodded. They gave you a new name when they erased your path. To hide you. But why me? Lyra asked. Why any of this? Her mother stepped closer. Because you were the first child to resist forgetting. You saw what was in the mirror and didn't look away. So they fractured you. And you? Lyra asked. They offered me a choice. Leave you, or let you be taken whole. Lyra's throat tightened. You chose to stay. Her mother looked at her with pain and pride. I hope someday you'd come back. And you did. The mirror behind them began to glow. Eli stepped forward. There's one more place, he said, where she keeps what's left of the others. Lyra turned. The others? The ones who didn't remember, or didn't escape. She looked down at the drawing again. The tall, faceless shape loomed in the center. She's still feeding. Eli nodded. And you're the only one who remembers enough to stop her. Beneath the house. They returned through the mirror. Lyra found herself standing in the basement of her own house. Only now, she saw it differently. It wasn't just a room full of boxes and dust. It was a gate. The floor beneath the rug was carved with symbols. The walls were etched with names. Names of children. Eli knelt and touched one of them. They were here once. Lyra walked to the center and placed the photo box on the floor. It glowed faintly. The air grew heavy. A voice echoed up from the cracks in the floor. You carry too much. Give me one name. I'll leave the rest. Lyra stood tall. No. The shadows rose. The mirror woman emerged again. Her eyes black. Her mouth full of other people's voices. You should have stayed split, she hissed. You were easier to control. Lyra stepped forward. I'm whole now, and I remember everything. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the shard of mirror she had kept. In it, her true name glowed. Lyra. She held it toward the shadow. The house shook. Screams tore through the walls. Not hers. The shadows peeled back, and the mirror woman began to burn from the inside out. After the fire, the next morning, the house was silent. No flickering lights. No voices in the attic. No knocking. Just peace. Lyra stood at the porch, watching the sunrise. A bird sang in the distance. The mailbox was empty. She turned and looked inside her home. Everything was where it should be. Except for one thing. The mirror above the fireplace was gone. Only a smooth wooden panel remained, as if it had never been there at all. She walked to the hallway. Her childhood drawings were framed now, perfectly preserved. The name on the bottom of each? Lyra. And on the dining table sat a new photo. Her mother, and Eli, standing in the field from the mirror world, smiling. Together. Lyra touched it. She didn't need to open any more doors. Because she was home. And she remembered.